At the center of this unfolding drama is Kayla Malik, a massively popular TikToker with over 15 million followers and nearly 2 million YouTube subscribers. Known for her unique makeup looks, especially the way she draws on exaggerated freckles, and viral storytime videos, Kayla had built a loyal following. But behind the filters, beauty hacks, and social media fame was a relationship that was tearing her apart from the inside out. That relationship was with Evan Johnson, a lesser-known influencer who gained popularity largely through his public connection with Kayla. The two had showcased their relationship online, appearing in cute videos, matching outfits, and loving couple content. But what fans didn't see was the darkness happening behind the scenes. After months of silence, Kayla shocked the internet by releasing a two-part YouTube series titled "He Doesn't Love You," detailing her private experience in the relationship. In it, she described a deeply toxic and emotionally damaging dynamic, filled with manipulation, control, and alleged abuse. She described events that left her emotionally traumatized and possibly physically harmed. The internet was stunned. Viewers flooded her comments with support. Many called her brave for speaking out and applauded her vulnerability in revealing such painful truths on a public platform. But that wasn't the end of it. Shortly after Kayla shared her story, Evan Johnson was arrested in Sumner County, Tennessee, for domestic violence and a violation of probation. While some initially questioned whether her story was being exaggerated for views, the arrest gave credibility to everything Kayla had said. Media outlets quickly picked up the story, confirming the charges and raising serious concerns about Evan's past behavior. And just when the public thought the worst of the story had been exposed, things got even messier. Because out of nowhere, James Charles, who had previously supported and collaborated with Kayla, was now being connected to Evan. Not just loosely, not just as a mutual acquaintance, but as someone who allegedly invited Evan into his home, spent private time with him, and possibly got romantically involved. The question everyone began asking was simple, but explosive. Why would James Charles, Kayla's friend, support the man she says abused her? That's where the scandal truly began to spiral. And the betrayal that followed left fans stunned. As Kayla's heartbreaking story continued to gain traction, fans began connecting the dots, and they didn't like what they saw. Because while Kayla was publicly detailing the trauma she endured, James Charles, the very influencer who once boosted her platform, called her beautiful, and publicly offered to do her makeup, was reportedly getting closer to Evan Johnson, the man at the center of her abuse allegations. James and Kayla had collaborated multiple times, and their friendship seemed genuine. Their lighthearted videos had introduced Kayla to parts of the beauty world she hadn't accessed before. To fans, James was seen as a supportive mentor, someone who saw potential in Kayla and helped elevate her during a critical moment in her career. But now, that trust appeared shattered. According to Zach Sears, a former friend of Evan's, who would become a key whistleblower, James had allegedly invited Evan to stay with him at his Los Angeles home just weeks after the breakup. Not only that, but James was said to have FaceTimed with Evan daily, exchanged private disappearing Instagram messages, and even advised him on how to manage the fallout of Kayla's public accusations. Let that sink in. While Kayla was pouring her heart out online, seeking healing and justice, James Charles was allegedly sitting beside her abuser, coaching him on how to survive the scandal. And it didn't end there. Zach claimed that Evan told him James was more than just a friend. He suggested that there was a personal, possibly romantic connection growing between the two. The rumors intensified when Zach shared that James had offered to bring Evan to Coachella, an event James is notoriously known for attending with men he's romantically interested in. The internet exploded with questions. Was James Charles protecting Evan because he didn't believe Kayla? Was he manipulated like he later claimed, or was he knowingly betraying a friend? And perhaps most importantly, was this part of a much larger pattern? At this point, what was once a scandal involving two ex-partners had spiraled into something much darker, a story of betrayal, power, and the influencer world's toxic underbelly. And the receipts were only just beginning to surface. The internet had questions, but what came next was an answer no one was ready for. According to Zach, Kayla didn't just vaguely hint at problems in her relationship. She went directly to James Charles the day she broke up with Evan. She allegedly told him everything: the manipulation, the trauma, the truth about who Evan really was behind the scenes. She trusted James, not just as a fellow influencer, but as a friend, someone she thought would be in her corner. And how did James respond? Allegedly with one chilling line: "Can I have him now?" That moment, those 5 words, sparked a wildfire of rage across the internet. For many, it confirmed what they feared. This wasn't a case of ignorance. This was deliberate, callous, and disgusting. But it didn't stop there. When Kayla later reached out to James directly, asking if Evan was with him, James denied it. He claimed he hadn't seen Evan, didn't know where he was, and had no idea what she was talking about. The problem? Zach says that Evan was literally sitting next to James on the couch at that exact moment. Let that sink in. James allegedly looked Kayla in the eye through a phone screen, lied to her face, and continued hiding a man she said had abused her. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was strategic, calculated, covered up. And according to Zach, James wasn't just letting Evan crash on his couch. He was actively supporting him, emotionally and logistically, during the worst moment of Kayla's life. He was allegedly telling Evan to avoid addressing the public, to record pre-planned statements, to stay silent, all while pretending, at least publicly, that he stood with survivors and women like Kayla. Viewers began to ask the question no influencer ever once pointed at them. Was James Charles using his influence to protect a known abuser because he found him attractive? The narrative wasn't just disturbing, it was devastating, and it was about to get worse. Because while James remained quiet, the receipts were piling up, and the voices calling him out were only getting louder. As the internet buzzed with fury and disbelief, James Charles finally made a move, but not in the way many expected. He didn't post a video, he didn't issue a public apology, he didn't even address Kayla directly. Instead, he quietly slid into Zach's DMs. Screenshots of the message show James trying to reframe the entire narrative. He claimed he had no idea what Evan had truly done. He insisted he was manipulated, that Evan spun a version of the story that made him seem like the victim. James said he felt empathy because Evan's situation reminded him of something personal he'd been through. That's why he supported him, at first. But here's where the cracks in James's defense began to show. In the same breath, James claimed he stopped talking to Evan after seeing Kayla's video. But Zach, and many fans, had already presented receipts that Evan was staying at James's house after the allegations surfaced. There were FaceTime calls, disappearing Instagram messages, voice memos, plans for Coachella. If James had truly cut ties with Evan, why was Evan still in LA, in James's guest room, while Kayla was being gaslit online? To many, James's message wasn't an act of accountability. It was classic damage control, a tactic the internet had seen from him before. Slide into someone's DMs, paint yourself as misunderstood. Reframe the narrative before it spirals too far out of your hands. But this time, it wasn't working. Zach, to his credit, didn't stay silent. He publicly shared the message and explained how, in his view, James was trying to clean up a mess he knowingly created. Even worse, Zach claimed that James had tried to silence him, using behind-the-scenes pressure to discourage him from speaking out. That's when fans realized this wasn't just a mistake, this was a strategy. And James Charles once again had allegedly prioritized his image over integrity, his brand over his friend, his desires over someone else's trauma. The trust was crumbling fast. And unlike last time, the internet wasn't so quick to forgive. As more disturbing details emerged, something strange started happening across James Charles's social media platforms. Critical comments, vanishing. Fan outrage, hidden. Questions about Evan, deleted. Viewers began documenting their experiences, claiming that anything calling James out for his connection to Evan Johnson or questioning his loyalty to Kayla Malik was being rapidly scrubbed from the comment sections. TikTok, Instagram, even older YouTube videos were suddenly squeaky clean, void of anything controversial. It wasn't a coincidence. It looked like a deliberate cleanup, and fans were furious. Many felt like they were watching James attempt to erase the scandal in real time, managing perception instead of taking accountability. For a creator who had already been through multiple public controversies, this was a familiar move, and people weren't falling for it. But behind the scenes, things were allegedly even more insidious. Zach Sears, Evan's former friend and now outspoken whistleblower, claimed that James wasn't just deleting comments. He was allegedly using legal intimidation to silence him entirely. According to Zach, James's team reached out to his modeling agency in what appeared to be an attempt to damage his professional relationships and reputation. Why? Because Zach wouldn't stop talking. Zach doubled down, revealing these allegations in interviews and TikToks, explaining that the pressure he was facing felt like a full-on campaign to get him to shut up. "He's trying to scare me," Zach said in one video, "but I'm not going anywhere." The optics were damning. While Kayla stayed silent out of respect for her ongoing court case, James was allegedly trying to control the narrative through power plays and behind-the-scenes influence, rather than facing the truth head-on. The internet has seen this tactic before. The bigger the influencer, the more resources they have to bury a scandal instead of owning it. But in this case, the receipts were too strong, the witnesses too vocal, and the audience, finally, too tired. Because no matter how many comments you delete or how many agencies you pressure, you can't erase the truth. While James scrambled behind the scenes, Kayla Malik remained largely silent, but not without impact. Bound by legal constraints due to an upcoming court hearing, she couldn't publicly address the situation in full. But her digital footprint told a different story. On a video discussing the scandal, viewers noticed that Kayla had quietly liked a comment that read, "I'm so sorry about James Charles. That is just so selfish." It wasn't a statement, but it was a signal. And for many, that one tap on the heart icon spoke louder than any tweet could. Her silence wasn't weakness, it was patience. And with her court date just days away, fans knew the calm might only be temporary. Because when Kayla can speak freely again, what she says next could change everything. As Kayla remained composed and silent, the internet did the opposite. Viewers, influencers, and longtime followers began to speak out, many for the first time in years. Comment sections that once praised James for his humor or artistry now flooded with questions, disappointment, and fury. Old apology videos resurfaced, not as reminders of remorse, but as evidence of a cycle. People pointed out that James always seemed to show regret after he was caught, not before. That each scandal followed the same pattern: denial, silence, deflection, and damage control. But this time, something felt different. This wasn't about petty drama or clout-chasing accusations. This involved real-world consequences: an alleged abuser, a survivor, and a supposed friend who may have chosen attraction over accountability. And fans had reached their breaking point. As hashtags trended, memes circulated, and call-outs spread like wildfire, one question lingered in every corner of the internet. What else hasn't James told us? James's involvement with Evan isn't being viewed in isolation. Instead, it's being stacked onto a long list of questionable relationships, messages, and inappropriate behavior. Fans pointed out the uncomfortable age gap. Evan is 20 while James is pushing 26, and questioned why James seems to repeatedly pursue younger, vulnerable men. The consensus? This isn't new. This is a pattern. Eventually, James made a public statement. "I do not support Evan Johnson. I am hoping and praying that Kayla gets justice tomorrow. As I promised her privately, I will not be responding publicly to anything until after the hearing is over." But for many, it was too little, too late. The internet had already drawn its conclusions, and James's silence in the days before only made it worse. His TikTok following has started to drop. His comment sections are flooded with backlash. And some fans are calling for brands to cut ties permanently. James Charles survived cancellation once. When TikTok was still new, he rebuilt an audience who didn't know the depth of his past. But this time, the internet remembers. As more influencers speak out and the legal case unfolds, one thing is clear: this scandal isn't going away. And James Charles may finally be learning that no amount of followers can protect you from the truth. What do you think? Is James finally facing the consequences he's dodged for years? Or will he once again talk his way out of it? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the next chapter in the world of celebrity drama.